always. From the moment you woke up, you knew that today was going to be busier than usual. There was a list of errands that needed to be finished before the day was done. First up was visiting one of the biggest farmers markets in the area. It was only open 2 weekends a month during certain parts of the year. It was rare that you and your family were able to attend, so your moms liked to make the most of every minute of it. And you realized it was not just them feeling that way when you heard a whistle from your left side. Wow, this was a swanky show. Vegetables have never seemed so highbrow. Seriously, this don't mess around with their products. They don't mess around with their products.
Isn't that great?
Isn't it exciting? Liz crossed her arms. You could tell she was amused. We couldn't have picked a more perfect trip. It's been too long since we've had a true family outing. Her teasing tone said more than she could actually did. Your next door neighbors had joined you this day, and that's what made it a true family outing. The 3 parents laughed approvingly. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught Cole looking at you sympathetically. Some things never changed, and some jokes never died. You'd long accepted that. You were excited to check things out. You thought this trip might be fun. You shrugged, feeling indifferent. You felt uncomfortable. You were in a bad mood. This trip was a waste of your time. You thought this trip might be fun. You smiled, trying to imagine how many stalls were set up. You were curious what hidden gems were waiting for you to discover among them. Well, I'm ready to get started. I've got plenty of dishes in mind I could use ingredients for. Before your moms responded to that, they glanced at each other and smiled. Yes, that's a very good idea, Cliff. This place is much larger than it seems. It's difficult to visit each part in a single day.
I got it.
I'm sure we can make a decent dent together at least. Actually, since there are so many of us this time, we could take different sides of the market.
Sounds good.
Divide and conquer, eh? That sounds brilliant. Everyone watched your mom's surprise. No one had considered that an option, but your mom flashed the group a dazzling smile, continuing with the thought. Though it's a little unfair that there are 4 Thompson family members and only 2 Holdens here, so I'll go with you boys to even out the odds.
Okay.
That's fine with me. Cliff scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. He wasn't sure where to look or what to say. That was not a problem his son had.
No.
I don't like that idea. Don't worry, we'll be apart for only a few hours, and then we'll have something to talk about at the end of it. After the additional nudging, Cove nodded with a sigh. He realized this wasn't an argument he was going to win. Alright. I don't get the point, but I also don't mind spending the first part of the trip with Jamie and Ma. Ma clapped her hands together at that. Wonderful. Are the teams ready to go? Hey, I didn't agree to anything. Yeah, let's go. Can I be the one who goes with the Holdens instead? You stayed silent. Can I be the one who goes with the Holdens instead? You looked from your mom to your ma, hopeful that you'd at least get to explore the market with Cove. He perked up at the suggestion, but then you saw Ma was pouting at your request to leave her group. Sorry, no can do this time, kiddo. Seeing that neither parent was budging, you slumped your shoulders. We won't be split up too long, right? Ma hooked an arm around you in a little side hug. You grinned.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Taking the lead, Mom walked over towards Cove and Cliff, who were still eyeing her confusedly.
Let's go.
Come on, boys. We're heading out. Sure. Okay. Cove looked at you softly and found himself pull forward, stopping in front of you. His expression flickered for a moment, hesitant.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Cove lightly took one of your hands in his and gave it a small squeeze. He dipped his face forward, wanting to kiss farewell, when instead he stopped midway, his whole body stiff. He jerked his gaze back at your mom, and you realized that she had grabbed the hem of his shirt. She gave it a small tug before letting go.
No.
Time's a wasting, Cove, and I've known you long enough to be aware that you're one to linger. If I don't stop you now, you'll only drag your feet on parting ways more. The two of you can snuggle and make out as much as you want later. We have important shopping to do now. Cove gasped at what he felt was a truly obscene thing to say. His face burned red, but that was ignored by him. He spoke with an unimpressed roll of eyes.
Seriously?
You don't need to literally pull me away from Jamie. I'm not that clingy. Mom sniggered with a shake of her head. Cove's eyebrows raised over the reaction, and he turned to Ma. She wouldn't meet his eye as she whistled innocently. Liz smirked ear to ear, and Cove whipped his head towards his dad. Mr. Holden couldn't offer anything more than an apologetic shrug. It was only then that it dawned on Cove that everyone did think that he was that needy. Finally, he dared to face you with wide, pleading eyes. Don't make fun of Cove. Who said you were allowed to say things like that to him? Cove is totally capable of being independent when he wants to be. There's nothing wrong with being attached. It's nice. Come on, Cove. You know how it is. Silently, you stared back at him. Cove is totally capable of being independent when he wants to be. You spoke very matter-of-fact and fixed a stern gaze on the group. Cove, meanwhile, beamed at having your support. Without thinking, Cove took another step forward, feeling drawn to you. Also again, Mom grabbed the back of his shirt. She tried suppressing her laughter, but a few chuckles escaped. Actions speak louder than words. Cove's mouth twisted as he struggled to come up with something to say in his defense. He was newly embarrassed all over again. Yeah, well, so what? That admission had Liz, your moms, and his dad bursting into laughter. Cove grimaced and walked several steps from the group before stopping. He clearly wanted to move on, so much that he was physically moving away. He smiled softly and waved goodbye when he noticed Cove's mouth pulled into a bent smile of his own, and he seemed to feel better a bit.
See you later.
See you in a few hours. Take care of yourselves. At that, Mom picked a direction and set out into the market with Mr. Holden and Cove following behind her. Grinning, Ma sent them off with a big wave. Liz gave a daintier goodbye wave herself. Despite the change in plans, you were still glad to be there. You felt like the change in plans was a good idea. You felt unsure about it. You had been happy, now you were annoyed. You had been happy, now you were annoyed. That definitely put a damper on your good mood. You thought that you'd get to go shopping all together. You'd been looking forward to being able to go through the market with your boyfriend. You didn't like having your plans suddenly changed. You thought that you'd get to go shopping all together. You felt silly for the sudden pang of sadness, but it was hard not to feel it down. You had been looking forward to exploring the market with everyone. Liz noticed you were already deflating and took up the spot next to you. She elbowed you in a gesture that could only be encouraging when coming from an older sibling. Do you think there'll be any nice ginger around here? We'll have to find out. You nodded plainly, not having much to add right now. Ma led you both into the busy market. Some time passed, and your group had spent it browsing for the most part. There were only a few stalls you stopped at, but otherwise you were dragging your feet, trailing along behind Ma and Liz. At one point, Ma stopped suddenly. She put a hand on her belly and gave a half-hearted smile. I think I should have used the bathroom before we left home, like the two of you responsibly did. Just need to pee.
Yes.
Yes, Liz. I'll have to visit the ladies' room now. Should we wait here? Should Liz and I go on without you? Should we all go with you? Should we wait here? Ma craned forward as she struggled to pinpoint the direction she needed to go. She gently brushed your comment away. There's no need to worry about me for this, or waste time standing around. Keep on shopping. Though actually, I might need help finding my way. Can you please come, Lizzie? You and your sister had to share a look over that. Why did that, of all things?
Hey.
Ma, if anyone should go anywhere on their own, shouldn't it be you? You're the one needing a detour, and you're the parent here. Ma giggled, unfazed by the resistance. Liz, meanwhile, tipped the brow of her hat up, watching Ma skeptically. Soon enough, Jamie will have to handle doing these kinds of errands on her own. This makes good practice. What? Ma hooked an arm around Liz's and pulled her along.
Have fun.
Have fun? We'll find each other again later. Excuse me? Wait. Bye. You waved. You tried following after them. You stood there stunned. You waved. Dumbstruck, you gave a small wave as they waded into the crowd. They were out of sight within moments, and what started as a group outing rapidly became you, entirely on your own. You were overwhelmed. You thought, screw them, you were done with this whole trip. You felt great being left on your own. You thought Ma was being ridiculous, but you didn't really mind. You didn't know what to think. You thought, screw them. Your jaw clenched. Fine. This wasn't the shopping trip you had wanted in the first place. You walked off on your own. You found a place to sit where you were left. Ma had thrown you through a loop this time, and you felt lost. You were grateful for the nearby bench. Taking a few deep breaths, you took the time to collect your thoughts. Absent-mindedly, you scanned the booths with an eye shot. One hooked your attention. While most stalls were selling various garden-grown foods, this one had an array of homemade fudge. There were even vegan versions of every option. You You got closer to the stall, but soon your gaze drifted elsewhere. You sidestepped past a few other people and got yourself right in front of the counter for a better look. There was a widespread dozens and dozens of delicately cut squares of decadence. The owner smiled and approached you to explain their shop. The fudge is sold in boxes of 4 pieces. They either can be all the same, all different, or any mix you like. Are you looking to buy any today? You didn't want to get any. You wanted to get yourself a box. You wanted to get a box to share with everyone. You wanted to get a box just for Cove. You wanted to get a box to share with everyone. You wanted to get a box just for Cove. Looking at the treats made you think of Cove. You grinned, hoping he liked what you picked out. You wanted to get a box to share with everyone. The whole selection was too good not to share. You wanted to get yourself a box. Your mind was already filling with thoughts of sinking your teeth into the delicious fudge. There was no walking away empty-handed now. And that was all. Yeah, I could use some fudge. I'm glad you came to the right place then. For yourself, you picked cookies and cream, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate mint, red velvet, maple walnut, white chocolate peppermint, chocolate toffee, red velvet, and caramel swirl. Milk chocolate. Maple walnut. And for the group you picked cookies and cream, chocolate peanut butter, key lime, dark chocolate. For Cove you picked key lime and white chocolate. Shop owner carefully put your order together. You couldn't help but try to imagine how Cove might react when you presented this to him. Everyone else was definitely going to be happy when you regrouped later. You paid and there was no stopping the large grin going all across your face. Pivoting on your heels, you wove your way back to the center of the path. You pondered for a moment what you should do now. None of the stalls were catching your eye. What did grab your attention, however, was a head of familiar seafoam hair sticking out above the crowd. You knew instantly it was Cove. He hadn't noticed you yet, but he was walking in your direction. He held a couple of bags tightly in his hand. Strangely, you couldn't spot your mom or his dad anywhere. You let him go. You called out to him. Cove, over here! He instantly stopped dead in his tracks. Alert, Cove's head snapped up and his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on you. His whole demeanor brightened at the sight.
Jamie!
Jamie! He waved through passerby awkwardly in an attempt to get through as fast as reasonably possible, nearly stumbling more than once. You went over to him. You couldn't move from where you were. You bounced in place, excited for him to reach your spot. You ran to meet him. You ran into his arms. You took off full tilt toward Cove as he continued his own approach. You stretched forward as the distance closed. What you were doing clicked, and he easily scooped you into his arms as you jumped toward him. His bags crashed into your back as you didn't mind. Then you moved right into kissing him. Your lips planted themselves against his, and you could feel him chuckle. But he settled into it and returned the gesture. You stood there together, kissing each other in the middle of the farmer's market for a nice moment. Too soon you had to separate. There were things to discuss. It was undeniable that he was shopping by himself. You stared at him, confused. Where's the rest of your group? Cove crossed his arms defiantly, the bags twisting in front of him. Your mom took my dad and I ended up alone. Why are you by yourself? Mom and Liz abandoned me too.
What?
What? I can't believe this happened to both of us. They planned it. They had to. But I don't know why. Are they pranking us? I don't know either. And you meant it. You couldn't fathom what your moms were up to. Cove shook his head, trying to clear his mind. Well, I guess things are just up to us now. Yeah. So, his gaze wandered off as one of your parents might simply appear if he kept checking, and you could tell he was still processing the situation. He scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. Do you want to forget about whatever's happening and go shopping together? Definitely, you shrugged. Happily, you nodded. I'm not sure. Definitely. There was little care in your mind for what your moms had planned. You were ecstatic at the thought of spending the rest of the trip with him.
Don't worry about it.
Even if we have to make our own fun, we're gonna have a good trip. Cove smiled at you encouragingly. It made you feel more optimistic now, a little bit more hopeful. Glad that he was there, but still overall happy. Nothing, it was a terrible trip either way. More optimistic now. Having him there was already comforting, and now he also seemed determined to improve your day by all means. That had you looking forward to what was coming next. So where to first? I don't mind going back the way I came, if it's new to you. It's not hard to miss stuff, even if I've gone past it. What have you gotten? Cove shuffled his bags around and started pulling them open so you could peek inside each one. You recognized the array of things he picked up around the market. I mostly got typical things I can use pretty easily so far, nothing super exciting. There were a few tomatoes, some lemons, and sweet potatoes, among other things that were wrapped up so you couldn't discern what they were. What Cove bought made sense, but it was far from a complete selection. You glanced around at the nearby stalls. Want to start over there? Cove followed your eye as you pointed at one of the larger stalls. It was filled with several kinds of staple fruits and vegetables.
Come on.
Yeah, let's go. Once a few people finished paying and moved, you and Cove got yourselves directly in front of the shop. There were so many things to pick from. Let's see. Lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, of course. Spinach, carrots, potatoes, peaches, oranges, apples, peppers, strawberries, and that was everything. The shop owner put your selection together and handed it to you in a few bags. Happily you paid and waited for Cove to make his purchase. Ready to go? Cope grinned, satisfied with his new choices. He had added another bag to his small but growing collection. You nodded. Oh, wait. Before we start moving on and everything, want to hold hands? You held on to his hand. Shyly, you lifted your hand out for him to take. You took his arm instead. The blush on Cope's face deepened as you stepped closer and hooked your hand around his upper arm. You held him close and met his gaze with a pleased smile. Cope was momentarily surprised, but then he chuckled, happy with your change in plan. With renewed eagerness, your boyfriend nodded his head in the direction you had been going towards.
All right.
Okay, now let's go. Together, you and Cope wandered the market on the lookout for any stalls that caught your attention. Cope was walking around with a spring in his step, talking about the various meal ideas he had in mind. After a while, you had to go greater distances to find something of interest. Several of the stalls were selling the same goods. It was only a matter now of which you wanted to buy from. You continued and went down the path until Cope stopped suddenly, literally pulling you away from your thoughts. Cove? You followed his eye line past the crowds. Immediately you knew what grabbed him. Homemade jams and local honey. That stall was glittering with quaint glass jars stacked high, each encasing gels of varying colors. Cove's eyes were practically sparkling at the sight. His feet automatically began to take him there. Likely without being fully aware he had made an unexplained detour. When you got closer, you were surprised there were even more varieties than you thought. There were even different honeys based on what type of pollen the bees used. Cope's focus seemed torn between a bottle of blackberry jam and one of clover honey. Want some honey? You asked earnestly. Did you want some honey? You said, just teasing. I wonder what on earth could you possibly want at this stall? Everything looks really good. You shook your head at him disapprovingly. You quietly left him to his dilemma. Want some honey? You asked earnestly. Did you want some honey? You said, just to tease him. You spoke without a hint of irony to the pet name. You thought it was sweet, and the smile it got from Cove, made it even sweeter. He nodded. You thought things over for yourself too. Honey butter, strawberry jam, raspberry jam, rhubarb jam, plum jam, blueberry jam, apricot jam, blackberry jam, spring wildflowered honey, orange blossom honey, clover honey. Strawberry jam, and let's get some clover honey. Blueberry jam. And that was everything. You paid, and the shop owner started putting together your order. They carefully packed it in a single bag with paper. Thank you very much. Amused, you watched Cove give in and just buy both the clover honey and the blackberry jam. He also went all in, getting spring wildflower honey and plum jam too. The shop owner thoughtfully wrapped each in brown paper to protect them before putting them away in a bag. He handed the purchase to Cove.
Thank you.
Thank you. You both stepped away from the stall. Cove didn't fail to notice the look you'd been giving him since he agonized over his toast toppers. Hey, this doesn't go bad for a long time, so why not stock up? I could have chosen one if I wanted to. Alright, Cove. It'll be nice to enjoy snacking on it for a while. As he began to stroll, Cove looked up at the sky. He smiled. It was sort of unexpected, considering all of this was technically an errand, and unexpected changes often upset him. But he was happy, and Cove liked doing this kind of normal thing. And you could tell that Cove especially enjoyed doing these kinds of things with you. You blushed thinking about how comfortable doing this with Cove felt. You were feeling better than you were earlier. You were just feeling down about how the trip turned out. Cove's pleased attitude annoyed you. You blushed thinking about how comfortable doing this with Cove felt. It felt more than normal or mundane. It felt right. We're so domestic. I wonder what the others are doing right now. You remain silent. I'm glad you're having a good time. We're so domestic. Cove took a sharp intake of air and started coughing for a moment. Afterwards, he looked at you and your teasing grin and chuckled.
You're right.
That is true. I like it. Later, when you spotted a less crowded area, you took a break from browsing. Cove started rummaging through one of his bags just to check on how his goods were doing. A smile grew on his face as he went on to the next. You chuckled knowing that Cove wouldn't let anything go to waste. There wasn't a single doubt he was going to eat it all. You held a hand in front of your face as you squinted upwards. The sun had moved quite a bit. You'd been at the market for a good while now. Neither your feet nor your arms were sore right now, and Cove looked to be doing fine too, but that was something that could be coming. There was a price to pay for this much shopping, and it wasn't always just in money. Can you give me a piggyback ride? Could you carry my things? Want me to carry your bags? Want a piggyback ride? You quietly enjoyed the break from walking. Cove stared at you, unsure, but you just held a hand out expectantly.
What?
You don't have to do that. I bought it, and besides, you're already carrying stuff. That's not gonna change anything. I want to do it for you. Okay, you win. Or it's actually kind of a loss you're willing to take. No, it is a win.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Cove bundled up his bags into two groups and held them out for you to take. You accepted, but had to temporarily put all the bags down on the ground. He chuckled, watching you shuffle the bags around so each arm wasn't carrying too much.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. Really, it's nice of you. No problem at all. Standing up straight with the bags, you were all set to get going again. You grinned, happy to do this. And with that, you and Cove continued your trip through the market together. Ma and Mom had both texted you during the trip, though only to say that they hoped you'd found some good stuff and that they'd see you later. There were no answers on where they went or why. You and Cove continued to wind your way through the bustling market, the list of outstanding items steadily shrinking while bags grew heavier. Eventually, Cove realized that he hadn't checked his own phone in a while. The two of you came to a stop in the nearest alcove, where you'd be out of the steady stream of people pursuing the stalls, and he pulled out his phone. Cove pulled out his phone. You watched his eyes dart over the screen as he read the waiting messages. Not important. I can reply to that later. He mumbled his verdict under his breath. Then Cove's face scrunched up with confusion.
Huh?
Wait. I've got a message from my dad. Listen to this. Cove, I wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know what was going on when I left with Jamie's mom. Where are you? He sent that ages ago. I didn't hear it come in. He's sent another one since then. Says he hopes I'm alright and that he's not bothering me. The newest one says everybody's going to the parking lot soon and we can meet up there. He lowered his phone, eyes narrowed. The same conclusion that was settling on you had landed on Cove as well. So it was on purpose. The crowd of people passing by stayed as noisy as ever, a sharp contrast to the silence that had fallen over you and Cove. He was rubbing the screen of his phone against his shirt, wiping away dust and debris. He continued scrubbing the screen long after anything could have remained, the action a poor substitute for pushing away the awkwardness of the moment. This whole mess was so upsetting to you. You were furious. You didn't care about what your moms had done. You were struggling to comprehend this. The shock was too fresh for you to even know yet how you felt. You felt alright about it all. There was no malice behind the plot. You were quite sure of that. Your moms must have had their reasons for doing this, and it hadn't harmed you in any way. You exhaled a tired sigh. You shrugged. They can be really weird, huh? How are they going to explain this? Fine. Okay.
Are you okay?
Are you alright? His voice was gentle. Yeah, really. That's good. Abandoning us without a warning wasn't really a cool idea, even if they meant well, which they probably did. He looked you straight in the eyes. Not making a big deal out of this is nice. I'm not exactly thrilled, personally, so if you don't want to complain to me, you can. I can't. I don't have anything to complain about. Maybe I am kind of mad. Okay, I'm disappointed. I don't have anything to complain about. Nothing? Ever? I don't know. His mouth hung open, and then he laughed.
No way.
Come on, you gotta have plenty of stuff to complain about, just from the stunts I've pulled myself, let alone what's happening today. You cracked a grin at that. Despite yourself, he could certainly be a troublemaker when he wanted to be, but he could also be so kind. After a moment, he stepped away from you, face turned. Cove closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His brow creased, then furrowed deeper into a scowl, his arms tightly cooling together. So they did do something stupid. I knew it. His voice had taken on an exaggerated quality, but what truly distinguished it from Cove's typical speaking tone was the abundance of rage. This is such a chore. Parents are so dumb. Why do people have to go places with family members anyways? I hate them. He got it instantly. It had been years since the boy with the bowl cut had been in town for the summer, but Cove had never forgotten. To this day, he continued to unleash his impersonation whenever the moment felt right. Sometimes you wondered if the act had grown more exaggerated over the years, or if the kid really was always that ridiculous. You burst out laughing. You shook your head at Cove's silliness. You played along. You smiled quietly. That kid is never gonna live that down, huh? You burst out laughing. And every time it never failed to crack you up. Cove gave you a lopsided smile, letting the joke rest for now. Come on. We should probably go meet up with the group. Yeah. You didn't dally any longer, slipping back into the crowd and making your way towards the entrance of the farmer's market. It didn't take long to reach the parking lot. Your parents, Mr. Holden and Liz, were already waiting there, and they waved at you both as you approached. Your own family seemed to be in pretty good moods, in contrast to Mr. Holden. He stared at Cove with open concern as you got closer. Hey, bud. Hey, Jamie. How are you doing? We'd be doing better if it hadn't been abandoned in a farmer's market by our families. You saw your mom's frowning at his response, Ma glancing from Cove to Mom with blinking eyes. Just because Jamie is really laid back doesn't mean you can just leave her out of your plans and expect her to go with it every time. Ma hung her head, ashamed, and Mom had a press to her cheek. You could tell that they were quickly regretting their scheme.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry, Jamie. Her words were full of emotion. Mom squeezed Ma's arm. We were trying to make the errand more of a trip, less of a chore. Ma nodded. We didn't think you, Cove, and Liz wanted to be stuck trudging around a market with your parents all day, especially not in the summer. But you're always very thoughtful and don't like to leave your moms behind, so we did ourselves. It was only going to be for the market, not the other stops, I promise. Still, you're right. We could have just told you and let you make your own call. I really am sorry. Neither of us meant to upset you.
I'm really sorry.
All gas, no brakes, and we should have known better. Sorry. Ma ditched me too, after pulling her urgent potty break stunt, if that helps. I went off to do my own shopping, as it seems they planned.
Sorry.
Sorry I didn't check back in with you. I wasn't thinking and just tried to blow it off. You quietly took in their stories of what happened. Over to the side, Cope was talking to his dad. Thanks for telling me something was up, though I feel bad for missing the warning when you sent it.
You're welcome.
It's no trouble, sport. I learned my lesson about making surprise plans. Besides, I've got to register every thought that wanders through this head by you first, right? That sounds about right, yeah. Cove smiled at his dad, Mr. Holden, laughing. Clapped Cove on the back.
Not bad.
Wow, we're really being outplayed today. You realized you hadn't been the only onlookers to the Holden's moment. Your moms were exchanging rueful looks. Liz had her arms crossed over her chest, patiently waiting, watching it all unfold. Yes, looks like it. We'd better find some way to catch up.
In that case,
Maybe we can do Jamie's chores for the next week. Mom jabbed Ma on the shoulder. You might be onto something, Jamie. How do you like the sound of that? They looked at you hopefully. That sounds good to me. Make it 2 weeks. Mom laughed despite your totally serious words. I hear you. At the very least, we can make sure everyone stays together for the rest of the stops we're making today. You all nodded at the suggestion. We won't let you down. We'll be the best sheepdogs ever, guarding the flock and catching any strays.
honey.
We could at least be shepherds. You chuckled, your mood lifting in spite of the bumpy morning. It was going to be alright. You turned to the entrance for the farmer's market for one final glance, pressing it into your memory under this new light. You thought on what you'd picked up at the market and how you were going to enjoy it later. Some things you could only get from local suppliers like this. There was another perk about coming along to the market today. Actually, you realized this would be a good time to bring out the fudge you got to share, while everyone was clustered together. Hey, wait! Before we go, I've got something for everybody. The announcement grabbed everyone's interest, and they looked over at you, each curious about what you had in store. You dug your hand into the bag and pulled out this specially selected treat. I saw this amazing fudge stall so I got a box for us to share. Oh!
Oh.
Aw, that's so sweet of you. The Holdens were wearing matching grins at the prospect of free dessert, their family resemblance more notable as they mirrored each other's expression. Sweet is the right word for this. Thanks very much, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You're fantastic.
Great! Can't wait to bust it open. We should save it for tonight. You can't properly enjoy a treat when there's still chores to be done. Besides, we don't want to make a mess with it melting in this heat. The others murmured their agreement and nodded, reaching a consensus. You stowed the box away safely for now. Cove then sidled up next to you, an eager smile on his face. You could tell from his expression that he was up to something. Thanks again for getting fudge. It was really cool of you. You knew you hadn't come over just to thank you individually, not with that huge smirk. I got something to share too. But, well, only really with you. I guess I'm not as nice. Oh well. You cooked up a scheme of your own. He laughed. Anyway, well, I sort of picked something out with you in mind. You held a hand to your chest, staring at Cove as he explained further. Since your mom's decided we should shop separately, I figured I could use the time to get you something, just a little surprise. He reached into one of his bags and retrieved one of the wrapped up objects. You accepted the unexpected present, and he looked on excitedly as you tore off the paper. It was a glass bottle of cola soda. You didn't need to taste it to know that it would be nice. It was a boutique product. It was heavy in your hands, the container and smart metal cap reaffirming the quality. Even the label, constructed from coarse paper rather than a flimsy sheet of plastic, was distinctive. You were practically bouncing in anticipation, and he smiled sweetly at your reaction. It's not a big deal, but I just thought you might like it. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. You're so wonderful. You smiled at him. You're always getting me things. You shook your head at his antics. You're so wonderful. I can't believe we both got each other something. You weren't the only one who had that idea. Actually... You grinned, ready to unleash your surprise on him. You grinned, ready to unleash your surprise on him. His eyes began to widen. I got something for you too, when you weren't around. There was a burst of laughter, first from your mom, followed by a chorus of chuckles from the other three. You'd forgotten that they were still hanging around. Unfortunately, they hadn't paid you and Cove the same courtesy, and had been listening in on your conversation. You weren't even apart for a whole day! And you both still used that as a chance to get each other little gifts? Mom clasped her hands together, eyes bright.
Good job.
That's so lovely. A day. It was less than a whole morning.
Right?
True. I don't even want to think about what happens when you spend real time apart. That's my boy. You reached back into the bag where you had first retrieved the box of fudge for everyone, shuffling it aside to take out the other one underneath. You chuckled coolly, aware that the others were still watching you. The first one was for everybody, but that's not all I got. I bought a second bunch of fudge that's just for you. Co's face lit up, his grin stretching from ear to ear. The laughter that came from the others, who were fully tuned into your little show, didn't appear to reach him. You got one just for me? Cove took the box of fudge in one hand and claimed one of your hands with his other. He used the hold he had to lead you closer to him while he lifted the hand to his mouth and peppered kisses over your knuckles. He looked at you with his eyes full of delight. Thank you so much, Jamie. At this rate, it wouldn't just be your little group that knew that you'd been treating him. The whole parking lot was going to learn about it. Behind Cove, you could see Mom watching you both with a smile of hilarity. See, this is why he's so attached. You've spoiled him. You shouldn't make fun, Pam. It's clearly mutual. Besides, I don't hear you complaining when I'm spoiling you. Ma pinched Mom's cheek, making her laugh as she batted the hand away. True. Liz clapped her hands together with the air of a teacher calling for attention. Since the other adults aren't acting like grown-ups, the rest of us are going to have to pick up the slack. It's time to get back on schedule and continue with the rest of the errands. Playtime is officially over. Ma laughed while Mr. Holden grinned awkwardly. Mom hung her head in an exaggerated display of mock defeat. Kids are tough, and I can't even call them kids anymore. Liz tut-tutted with amusement at her mother. Cove shrugged, staying a neutral observer, but the small smile on his face revealed that he was enjoying the conclusion. You laughed, glad that everyone was getting along. That's right, we're all grown-ups now. With that, your trip to the farmer's market was closed. It was time to move on. There were too many of you for one car, so you and Cove had wound up in Mr. Holden's car on the way over. You figured it made sense to do the same for the next leg of the journey. You sat next to Cove in the back. Immediately after the click of the seatbelt in its lock announced that Cove was safely strapped in, he began to unfold the box of fudge he'd been given. You're gonna eat now? Uh-huh. He nodded eagerly, not taking his eyes from the container. He lifted the top off and longingly admired the selection inside. White chocolate? It always tastes great. Minty fudge is perfect for the end of snacking. It's so refreshing. Is the green fudge lime? Yeah, key lime. That's amazing, because it's fudge, but also fruity somehow. That's peanut butter in there, right? Mm-hmm. It's chocolate with peanut butter mixed. Ooh, that's so good. Once Cove had finished bestowing praise on what he'd picked, he promptly started sampling the selection. He was smiling, licking his lips, and having a grand old time. You could also tell from the way his nibbling was turning into munching that the box wasn't going to survive the trip to the next stop. You were right. Cove had tried to savor the treats, claiming just one more time, just one more, until there was only one left. And the statement was finally forced to be true. He finished the last one too. He sighed contentedly.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Jamie. Those really were great. You're welcome. He set the clean box to the side, then rested his hands on his spoiled tummy. Cove wasn't going to be hungry for a while after that. From there, he sat wordlessly, gaze drifting to the window. You knew Cove well enough to spot the signs of when he was physically present, but mentally elsewhere. The way he would fall quiet, staring without seeing, the long blinks, all of which he was doing right now, as he looked at nothing in particular. He licked his fingers absent-mindedly, getting the last of the melted fudge off his hand. You're pleased he enjoyed it so much. Is it too late to ask for a taste? You teased him. Cove straightened up at the sound of your voice, his pose stiff. He turned away, his hand smacking over his mouth instead. You were miles away for a second. What were you thinking about? Well, I was just thinking about how nice you are. How nice I am? Yeah. His face grew redder as his hands clenched on the top of his knees. You stared at him, hoping for an explanation, but Cove simply ducked his head. When he next spoke, his voice was barely more than a whisper. I'm lucky I get to be with you. I feel lucky too. He peeked at you from the corner of his eyes, still too shy to look at you directly. You smiled at him affectionately, eliciting an equally caring smile from Cove in return. You felt content, secure in your relationship with Cove. You decided to enjoy your drink now. You wanted to save the drink for later. You decided to enjoy your drink now. You twisted off the cap and brought it to your mouth. Even before the first sip reached your lips, the scent tickled your nostrils. You took a swig. It was refreshing. The perfect way to hit the spot after a long morning trawling through the market. This is great. Thanks, Cove. He grinned at you, pleased that his pick had been well received.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. You spent the rest of the day completing the remaining errands all together as a group. You had enjoyed your brief independence. It might not have come about under ideal circumstance, but it had provided you with an opportunity to spend time making your own choices. You felt that you had risen to the challenge. And that'll do it for this episode of Our Life, Beginnings and Always. Thank you for joining me. I love you all. Peace out. Bye-bye.